really want to salute this initiative by the Institute to discuss this topic, which I think is important. And as my two co-speakers have already said, it's something that cuts, I think, very much to some of the very human sides of this tragic conflict that all of you have witnessed and know so well from and which has been going on for far too long. So I hope that you will have a fruitful discussion tonight, and I can see from the list of speakers that you will be able to hear a lot about various aspects of this particular case on the village of Susiya. I would like to say that the European Union is obviously concerned about the pending demolition order again issued by the IDF against the homes in the village of Kiribet Susiya, which was confirmed that, as it was just mentioned, by the Israeli High Court in the month of May. The privately owned land where the Palestinians of Susiya reside is classified as agricultural land, and as a result, at least 70% of the existing structures in the village, including several schools, are under threat of being demolished. And this could potentially affect up to 300 people who could lose their dwellings. Although people have been living in Susiya since the 19th century, 5 attempts by the residents of the village to have the area rezoned so the village could remain in its current location have been dismissed. And I think this is an issue of some concern, particularly given the rest of the history of this village that you will hear about, I think, during the course of the evening. They have experienced a number of cases where the village has been closed down and they have been driven out of it. Then they have returned again. They have also lost some of their farmland, and now they're facing a situation where they will not be able to stay on the land in order to culture because they won't have anywhere to stay. The thing is that Susiya is unfortunately not a lone example. We are seeing an increasing number of demolition orders being issued and also executed in Area C in these years. And it goes from herders in the South Hebron Hills to Bedouins in the so-called E1 area, which is the last window around Jerusalem that's still open to the West Bank. Every month, the European Union Humanitarian Agency, which is very active in Area C in trying to furnish humanitarian support, including for those families that are being subjected to demolition of their homes. Every month, they report between 5 and 7 EU-funded projects, humanitarian projects in Area C that are being demolished. And this is obviously a question of great concern. After all, this is European taxpayers' money, and we are in quite an intense dialogue with the Israeli government on how to avoid this kind of result. Obviously, we from the EU side are acting on the basis of what's called the humanitarian imperative, which is basically a principle of international humanitarian law by which it's incumbent on the international community to extend humanitarian assistance to actors which have no other source of getting it. Our view remains, however, that it's up to Israel as the power administering Area C and the rest of the West Bank, or controlling it, to ensure that the inhabitants there can enjoy a reasonable level of living, and also that their humanitarian needs are satisfied. Area C is an extremely important area, as you know, because it constitutes about 60% of the West Bank. And as such, its development is a key to ensure the livelihood of a possible future Palestinian state. According to the Oslo Accords, Area C is the area in which Israel has both the administrative and security responsibility. But I don't think that preclude Israel from taking into account, and by the way, in accordance with international obligations, the needs of the local population, also when it comes to physical planning and access to a place to live. Currently, I think Palestinians are only permitted to build in a few percent of the Area C, whereas on the other side, we know that settlements are taking up quite a substantial part of the area. Not necessarily physically, but some of the security measures that are surrounding settlements are taking up quite a substantial part. According to some estimates, almost 60% of the whole West Bank are affected by it. So there is a discrepancy here, which we from the European Union side believe needs to be addressed. And one of the ways we have tried to address it and overcome the problem is by investing in a so-called master planning process, which is the idea of trying, in cooperation with the Israeli authorities and the Palestinians living in the area, to agree on physical planning in areas in which Palestinians can get permits to build dwellings, wells, and so on and so forth. EU member states and the EU itself have invested quite heavily in these master plans that have, as I said before, been subject to a very participatory process. Now, unfortunately, one of the beauties of the master planning process would be that it would render demolitions much rarer, because if people knew where they could build and get permits, then there wouldn't be the same need for demolitions. It would not solve all the problems, but it would solve, in our view, a substantial part of them. That's, by the way, a view that's shared by COGAT, the administrator of the territories, currently Polly Morderay. Unfortunately, the master planning process has been subject to a bit of political stop and go, because in certain instances the progress in the master planning process has been taken hostage, I would say, to other events that have been going on in the Israeli-Palestinian relationship, including the Palestinian move to accede to a number of international conventions and bodies. And for that reason, only a couple of master plans have actually been approved, and none of them are really being implemented as of yet. But I think they bear quite substantial promise, and it's one of the ways in our dialogue that we are trying to tackle this issue of ensuring that the structures that we are assisting, we and others are assisting in building, are not being demolished, and the unnecessary human pain and agony that comes out of demolitions are avoided. That is a modest contribution to trying to solve this issue, but I think at least it is a beginning, and our wish on part of the European Union is to intensify our dialogue with the Israeli authorities and also with the Palestinians on this issue. So in a sense, I think your discussion theme for tonight encapsulates quite a number of issues which have larger ramifications for the whole question of the development of the Palestinian areas, and in particular Area C. And on that note, I wish you a fruitful discussion in the spirit that the two previous speakers have referred to. I thank you very much for your